What's up, cuties? FUMI Abe here. I am coming to Toronto July 8th. I'm doing 2 shows, 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Please get tickets at fumiabe.com and you can use the promo code FUMI20 for 20% off. I need y'all to come out because I'm trying to sell out and that would make me feel good and I won't be depressed after. So if you like me, and you like this pod and you want to come see me, Toronto, July 8th, 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. fumiabe.com. Promo code FUMI20. See you there.
Welcome to Cash Cuties,
a super personal finance podcast where we analyze our friends' credit card statements and judge their spending habits with love. I'm your host, FUMI Abe.
And I'm Stephs Vacation. If you're listening on your Apple Pod app, please leave a review, hit follow on Spotify, and sub to our YouTube channel for the video version of this podcast. All the links are available in the episode description below.
Guys, and I cannot stress this enough, it is so important to sub and leave a review. We have thousands of downloads, but only like 160 reviews on the iPhone Apple app, and that shit matters. So if you're listening to it on your iPhones, just hit pause, go to your podcast app, find us, and just leave a review.
They're
you don't
so
have to write
funny.
anything.
They're hilarious too. So we read each and every one of those. So leave a review. Make sure it's 5-star. Don't leave us anything else outside of 5 stars.
Yes, you don't have to even like us, but you can leave a 5-star and say Steph and FUMI suck, whatever. That's okay. And then moving on, we like to give a shout out to our dono daddies. These are people who give us money on Patreon. What is Patreon? It is the best way to support this podcast. And you give us a donation, and in return, you get bonus content like episodes and behind the scenes footage from Steffi. This week we only have one dono daddy by the name of LH. Gave us $5. So thank you so much,
LH. Okay, we need more of those so we can keep
really
making these pots.
And I forgot to say this last week, but you can find our Patreon at patreon.com/cashcutiespod. So if you want a shout out and or bonus episodes, check that out.
Yeah.
So this week, we usually ask each other how we're doing financially, but Steffi and I got as you know, Steffi has been on vacation for, I think you were gone for like 3 weeks, which is a long time, right?
Whoa, you've been counting, huh?
You're like,
you're like 20 days and not.
You're on my calendar. Yeah.
I think, it was like about a little over 2.5 weeks. I changed the dates.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into how that's, I can't be away from home for that long, but we got this interesting critique from a fan. This is somebody who listens to the podcast a lot. And she says, after she heard that Steffi was gone for like 3 or 4 weeks, she says, "You bitches say you're poor, but are on vacation every month. I can't stand millennials."
Wow.
And so this person is Gen Z, obviously, but hey, that's a fair critique. And I thought maybe instead of doing how are you doing financially, I thought we could just quickly both just talk about the vacations that we just went on or about to go on and how we're sort of handling that financially. Not necessarily like how much you spent, but like mentally, how did you afford this, right? And did you think you could afford this? Are you in debt? When this person texted me, I was honest. I was like, I actually don't know like the day-to-day of Steffi's finances. Like maybe she just got paid a lot of money and that's what she used. But I also agreed with her in that like 3 weeks from away is a lot of money because not only are you paying rent at home, but you're paying for hotels in different cities and you went to a bunch of different places. So I know that when I go on vacation, I'm always trying to like cut corners by like staying with a friend and stuff like that. So I didn't know what your experiences was. So I thought maybe we could just take turns talking about, how we're not fully employed, but how we're affording these vacations.
I want to hear about I know you're about to go away yourself. You said you were kind of inspired.
I'm going to Hawaii. Yeah. I don't know if I told you that. Yes. So
yes,
that's like
you talked about wanting to do it, but you kind of like pulled the trigger recently.
Yeah. Well, I think like 2 months ago, I told you that I was going to do it. And then I chickened out because I was like, I'm not like working all the time and I don't have the money or whatever. And then so we ended up not going. And then Maria and I got in like, not a fight, but a little discussion about that. And I talked to my therapist about it. Well, yeah, but then I'm just like, you know what? Like,
we were just yelling or passionately talking about this.
But it's like one of those things where it's like, I mean, if I'm like always gonna be, am I not allowed to go on vacation unless I work a 9 to 5? Is that, you know what I'm saying? Like that's like a weird way to live life. And so I like came around and my friend, so I'm going to Hawaii in August, and I'll break it down for you. Listen, I know you hear me complaining about the money. when we had Andrea Jin on, we opened the podcast by saying to each other how much money we made that week. I made $40 2 weeks ago. Okay, I'm not doing that well, but it depends on week to week. But I'm going to Hawaii, and this is everything. This is all the finances. So I'm staying at a friend's place for free. She has a place in Diamond Head, and she usually charges people to stay, but we're good college friends. And so she says that we could just stay for free. So I'm not paying any money for lodging, which is saving me like $1,000. So that's one of the reasons. Flights were about $550 from LA round trip. So not terrible, kind of expensive, but not terrible. And then when we go, I've been to Hawaii like 3 times before. And since we're staying for a long time, like we're not going to eat out every meal. Like we like to, if we stay for a long time and we're staying at an Airbnb or something, we typically like grocery shop. So we'll go to like Trader Joe's or whatever and get, some like sandwich or whatever. That's like $3. Now that we're in Hawaii, we'll probably go to Foodland and get like poke and shit for like $5 or $10. So these are little ways we can save money. I mean, obviously at night we'll go to like a nice restaurant and stuff, but like for us, because we just like being in Hawaii, like there's no reason for me to be eating out every fucking meal and dropping $50-$70 every fucking meal. So
you're basically just you're like in a new location. You're doing the things you would normally kind of do, but you're just doing it in another location and a change of like scenery.
Yeah. And like weirdly enough, I think Hawaii is like, you can do Hawaii 2 ways. You can be like the rich Japanese tourists who are like, they stay at the 5-star hotel and they get massages and they like pay people to take them around and whatever. But I personally feel like Hawaii is like, it's just nature shit. And that shit's free, baby. Like hiking, snorkeling, all that is like really cheap or free. Like sometimes you got to pay like $10 to like, help the park maintain itself and stuff. But like a lot of it is free. So I'm hoping to do this trip under like $1,000, including flights. So it would be amazing if like over like, I think we're staying for 5 days. If I can spend less than $450, that means I did the whole Hawaii trip in $1,000, which I think is like very like on budget. And that's not, yes, like did I make $40 2 weeks ago? That's true. But I have savings from having worked like a very long time. And I'm typically frugal when I'm like, in LA. So
I feel like you need to explain yourself. Like, it's like, this is
that's
such
what this
a
girl's
guilty...
asking us to do.
Well, we didn't have to answer it, but you were just like, I need to answer this. I need people to know why and how, and to save yourself from all the guilt. You don't have to explain it, but I see that absolutely. You are. And $450 is really good for 5 days.
I mean, that's me being maybe a little bit too liberal. We'll see. But either way, even if I spend a total of $1,200 or $1,500, to me as a 33-year-old, and I think you agree with this too, is like, I mean, listen, we've lived a life, okay? It's not like I'm a grandpa, but we've lived a life, and to me, $1,000, $1,200, that is a cheap price to pay for a little bit of fucking mental relaxation. You know what I mean?
You need it, and you need material, right? Don't you? All of these are experiences, I feel like, as creatives, that we need to go make better shit.
We have to go live life. There is an incredible Haruki Murakami quote that I live by. He says, as a writer, it sounds way sexier in Japanese, but it goes something like, if you're the type of person who wakes up in the morning and just walks to the fridge and eats something, watches TV, lounges, and then goes back to the fridge and eats something and go back. If you're that kind of person, then you can only write about that kind of thing. So I think I take that quote to mean like, if you want to write about the world, if you want to write about something more universal or whatever, like you have to go out there and like fucking live life. Because if you just stay at home and eat shit from the fridge, you're just gonna only be able to write about that world, which is like your 10 by 10 apartment or whatever the fuck,
Yeah. So you can write about being a cheap comedian using Excel sheets to go on a trip.
Yes, I can talk about going to Hawaii on a budget. Yeah. But anyways, how about you? I mean, you just went on this like very long vacation, and it's so funny because in May, you and I did an episode called "We Had an Awful Month," where we talked about how we didn't make any money at all. And then in June, you were gone for all of June after that episode. That did make me laugh. But like, how are you affording this shit?
You all obviously know I was feeling a certain type of way this year. My mental health was just like, I just needed a break, and I hadn't done that in a minute. And I almost like just wanted to stay out there, which is why I extended my trip. And I was like,
Yeah.
FUMI, start looking for someone else. No, just kidding.
You have an accent now? You have a French accent?
I was like, hello. Hey, sorry, FUMI. As I'm eating my crumpets.
Yeah.
No, but so anyways, going back to how I can afford this trip, I was already kind of in a negative headspace of like not making money, which to me felt as if like not making money felt equivalent to not having money. Because like even if I look at my right
bars,
going into my savings just seems like the craziest shit, because you and I are both very safe. I think we overanalyze things. We're in our heads.
We're
about
risk averse.
Yes, especially with money. That's just ingrained in us, just because how probably like we grew up. I don't know. And I was like, you know what? I think when I realized it was going to happen, because I had the opportunity, my friends were going to be out there. And so I had part of my stays covered. So I had a place to stay when I was out there almost more than half the time. So I decided, okay.
That's great.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll stay in these hotels. People were, there was a concert, Primavera Sound, happening there. And so, and they were working that job. So it was easy for me to just like during those times to be there. But in the meantime, I decided to take some solo trips. And so I was pulling money out of my savings. I do have to say, there was some money that came in for jobs that I forgot about I had done. So that was another thing I thought about. I was like, I could have been sitting on my couch thinking about how I don't have money versus, you know, I was traveling and all of a sudden like some money came in that I didn't realize I had. So like I was just in my head, I was like, oh, I don't need to be sad and just like somewhere where it's just like money's still gonna come in. I don't know. I'm gonna be fine.
Well,
my therapist is like, you're just gonna always be fine, and I'm like, yeah, that's true.
I think like the way you're talking about it and is the way I'm trying to look at it as well. But I think sometimes young people, when they're like 22, 23, they look at things very logically, like, what? Like, so you're telling me that you only made $1,000 in May, but you're going on this vacation that probably cost like $3,000. And listen, I don't know how much it costs, but the thing is, it's like, I think I used to look at vacations this way. It's like, oh, that's a waste. Like mathematically, you're in the red. But I think I like to challenge that and say, it's an investment, right? Like you made an investment. It's not like you got something out of it. It's not like you made a gamble and you lost money. Like you got these experiences, you feel your mind is in a healthier place. And if $2,000 is what it takes every once in a while to fucking clear your mind, I think that is a cheap price to pay, you know, because I think there's a lot of people who stay in New York or whatever, wherever they are. And like, they just sort of stay in that. And then they're, I don't know, hate their job or whatever it is, and they just fucking keep building and building and building, and then explodes or whatever. So I try to think of it that way. So to all the Gen Z haters out there, why don't you leave me and Steffi alone? Okay, we got some savings. Okay, we know we're not going bankrupt, but every once in a while, it's important. It's important, I think.
Yeah, just because we're not making money in the moment doesn't mean we haven't done smart things with the money we have. Right?
That's what it is. Like we worked hard in the past. How do we afford this? We worked really hard in our 20s. That's what it is.
It's true, but we also kind of shut off again. We're not going to debt. We're not being stupid with our money. We're just like, we've gone so long not spending it, being smart. I think doing this podcast has made me even more like aware of my money, which before I think I would have like spent a little bit more, not opposite of frivolously, just like kind of like without thinking
lavishly.
About it too much.
Yeah.
And so I think that made me kind of save some money. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go do this thing, and literally I shut off part of my. I didn't like shop. Normally, I think when I would make more money, I would shop a lot when I would travel. Like I would buy like luxury items, like designer things and stuff like that. I didn't do that at all this trip, and I had so much fun. Like I didn't need all that stuff. I didn't need things. I just needed...
You heard it here first. You can have fun in Europe without buying a Louis Vuitton bag. Can you believe it? Can you believe it? You can have a lot of fun without buying a Fendi dress.
It seems like Everyone is going through layoffs these days, Fumi. Did you notice that?
Yeah, it's mad scary.
If that's you, listen up. You might be entitled to more rights than you know.
When you get laid off, your employer is probably going to make you sign an NDA before they finalize your layoff, and your company is going to pressure you to sign this document and tell you that if you don't, they're not going to give you your final paycheck. But you should talk to a professional before doing so.
Did you know that you can negotiate your severance pay? Do not accept it right away. It is tempting, but they're going to lay you off. So you need to get as much as you can.
There's also something called the Wage Transparency Law that just passed in March of 2023, which allows you to freely discuss your compensation with your coworkers out in the open to see if you are getting paid around the same or if there's some sort of wage discrimination. You need to know your worth.
If you have any questions about employment issues or layoffs, contact Brianna Kim PC, your Korean lawyer friend, and get some advice. She works on contingencies, so it's free until your case is won. Go to KoreanLawyerFriend.com or leave a voicemail at 714-482-6301. Don't forget to mention Cash Cuties when you reach out.
This week, we got a message from a fan, a very good message, and we sort of wanted to create a topic around this because I think it's something that a lot of people like our age think about, especially as we move into our 30s and like sort of realize like, oh, like what am I doing here? Like I live such a cookie cutter life. This is boring. Should I be taking chances? And so I wanted to read this note from our Patreon fan. This person pays money. So if you want to be like her, go to patreon.com/cashcutiespod. And, I guess like the theme of this week's episode is like sort of the finances of quitting your day job. Not just sort of the financial aspect of it, but like the mental aspect of it. Cause I think a lot of people, we've gotten several messages about people wanting some, not necessarily advice, but like wanting to know more about our experiences. Cause I think we have different experiences. So just to summarize, I'll read this little thing from, Nori, who was her fan. She says, I've been with the same company for 8 years, make decent money with good benefits, had one promotion, and my boss has mentioned she'd like to move me up further, but I now have a pretty secure opportunity to make a living by going full-time with my current side gig. The prospect of leaving a company job for the insecurities of self-employment is pretty terrifying. I've heard you both mention taking that leap. Can you talk a little bit about what helped you feel ready to leave the corporate grind to do your own thing? So basically, she just kind of wants help help on like feeling ready to leave a steady job for another passion or pursuit. And yeah, I mean, what's your general
immediately
first take?
Yeah, off top, there is no ready. Like you're not gonna get ready to cut it off all the way. It's like everything you do. Like that's an intense like thing you fear. You have to just jump in. You know, you can't overthink it. I actually think that you and I kind of had a similar thing where when I left, I was already kind of experiencing the other world. I was obviously in real estate, and when I transferred, sorry, I have hiccups and I can't get rid of them right now. Maybe you should go. I've been trying to get rid of. Like you go first.
Okay. Kind of sounds like you're drunk, but yeah. So I think like you hit on a very good point. And when we talked about this yesterday, I think we want to sort of look at this from like 3 different angles. So like it's sort of like I think with leaving a stable anything, relationship, job, anything, there's a lot of anxiety that comes with it. And I think there's like fear and anxiety. I think there's also like money and anxiety, and there's also like social things and anxiety. So right off the bat, like I think you're right. I don't think there is at the right time, but I kind of want to like focus on what she said here. She says the prospect of leaving a company job for insecurities of self-employment is pretty terrifying, and I think that like that's an interesting sentence because like I don't know what her background is. I assume I don't know how old she is either. I assume she's someone maybe in her late 20s, have been working for a while, probably has savings, and I guess the question I want to ask is like, what is so terrifying about leaving that job with or without this other passion? I think a lot of people make decisions out of fear, and I think that's why we stay in these like boring jobs forever, like literally forever. But I'd like to just ask that question of like, what is so scary about not getting a paycheck for a little bit? I think like people really think in extremes. And I know I went through this, but like, just because you're not getting a paycheck doesn't mean you're a fucking piece of shit or you're going to go homeless or something. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, do you relate with what she's saying?
Yeah. Because like for me, okay, I could tell you what I feared. I knew I'd be taking a really intense pay cut. Like I knew that I could not live luxuriously. I knew that it affected, again, my family. I could see that if I wasn't, and I came from already sort of a self-employment situation, because real estate sort of is like you're your own boss. Say that I had health insurance, like with a company, like I wasn't self-employed and I was just like working for like fucking Google. I'd be scared to not have health insurance. And like, I know those companies give your family members health insurance. That means that you have to provide all of those potentially yourself, or you have to break the dependency there for that, right? Like they have to start paying for their own, or I don't know. I think there's more to it than just like like I'm quitting this job. It's affecting everyone around me. It means that I can't potentially go on fancy dinners or like, you know, these dinners that if I knew I had like a check coming in the next week just because Google was paying me, like I got to really think about what kind of meals I'm going to have. How is that going to affect me socially? And what are my friends going to think about me? Like there's so many things that go into it. And I could see the more you think about it, there's just a list of crazy things that happen when you quit something that's safe.
Right. I mean, this is something I learned from my financial advisor, but like, you know, to what you're saying about like, oh, if I don't get a paycheck, I can go to fancy dinners. Like, again, I don't know what this person does, but my financial advisor was like, just have enough money in your bank account or whatever so that like if you lose your job, you don't have to change your lifestyle for 6 months or 12 months. Like whatever that is to you, just have that. And so I would say, obviously, like with the family stuff, I don't know much about that, but like if you were, because Steph, I know you were making a lot of money doing real estate. So just because you quit today, you still worked for the last however many years. So it's not like tomorrow you're not going to have any money. Like, you know, you save, whatever. If that's what you want, is to maintain that lifestyle, you can sort of plan ahead and be like, well, I have enough money that I can maintain this exact lifestyle for 6 months, 12 months while I do this other thing. So I think there are other ways of thinking at it. But to your point, it is, I guess it's scary because you just keep thinking about I think what scares people is they go, well, now I'm not going to have a paycheck forever. And then you start picturing your life where you're not making any money for like 10 years, 15 years, you know? And that's a very extreme place. And I also not even realistic, you know? So I'd like to just, obviously I don't know everybody's like famous situations, but like, I would say the first step is like really logically, rationally think about like, what would it mean if I just didn't work for a year? You know, like, are you going to fucking die? Like, I don't think, it sounds like she has a job and she's getting raises and stuff. So she could probably make it work, you know?
Yeah, if she's already considering it and she seems, I don't know if it's like, she just seems responsible for some reason. What is it? I think it's her name, Nori-chan. Like, I imagine she's like this Japanese person who's like super organized, and like the fact that she's writing in.
Have you heard about the lazy girl era? It's a trend on TikTok.
Sort of, yes.
Okay,
explain
so
it to us.
It's this concept that like, it's these girls who are like probably late 20s, early 30s who are like, it's sort of like a feminist thing where they're like, women aren't meant to work full time to reach their full potential. And I don't really care about becoming like a marketing expert. And so it's these people who find lazy girl jobs, which are jobs that pay anywhere between like 60 to 85. And you work like, it's not that demanding and it's full time, but you're really working like maybe 20 hours. And so she talked about how she was able to keep her job while like raising her baby and stuff. And so it's like the opposite of like the millennial hustle that we were all experiencing 10 years ago of like, I gotta work at Google and I gotta make 200K. It's like, fuck all that shit. What I value is free time with my family, my friends, drinking wine, watching TV. So she finds these jobs that pay like 60, 80. Again, not a ton, but definitely enough if you're single and you don't have to support a family. Also depends on where you live. But like, she just like, this is a lazy girl era. And people are like looking, and she gives these like, she posts these job listings of like, here's a job job. Here are the jobs that you want to look for if you want to be a lazy girl. And it's like marketing associate or like whatever. And so she gives advice on people. I love that too. I fucking love that.
There was a time when I moved to New York, I guess what this is. And I fucking loved it. I worked at Sephora for a year in between my real estate and like when I made the transition into like almost full-time doing this, like the year before I had lived in New York for a bit. And Sephora's, I would wake up, I lived in the Lower East Side. I lived with my friends and I had like literally $1,000, just like a bedroom in a 3-bedroom like apartment. And from Lower East Side, I'd walk to Soho every single day, whether it was snowing, whatever, it was raining. And I fucking loved it. Like, I can't explain to you how it was like, I did not have to think about my future. I didn't think about anything else other than I have this one thing I have to do. I just go to work. I talk to regular people who aren't trying to hustle or bust. Like, I'm not trying to make a commission. There is no, and it was just, I got to do what I wanted. And I got to play with makeup, look at makeup all day, and I fucking loved it. And that's exactly what this is, isn't it?
Yeah, Lazy Girl Era.
I love this. And I've honestly, sometimes I like dream about doing that now. And I feel like there is this part of me, I'm embarrassed that if I worked at a bakery near my place that I would love to work at, I'd be embarrassed that if someone saw me, they'd be like, oh, she like never made it, you know, like, but I want to, to be honest, I want to do it.
But see, again, you're making that decision out of fear,
It's just caring what anyone else thinks. Like if I didn't, like say that I would like move to Amsterdam, I would do that.
Yeah, because nobody you know would live there and they would never know. You hit on a really good point about, there's sort of this, I also think like what's so nice about having a stable job is not just the money, but you're right. It's this like, you have a purpose. You're like, I wake up and I do this. So when people are like, oh, what do? You have an answer. I do this. And I think that to me, the real scary part about quitting your day job and pursuing your passion, even if you don't make that much money doing it, is not the financial aspect. Because to be honest, this girl sounds smart. She can always go back to her job. It's going to be fine. But sort of like you have to figure out who you are and like what to do with your day when there's no accountability, right? Like you work for yourself. And so I had to like spend a lot of time figuring out like a schedule that works for me and how I can still feel like not a fucking piece of shit. Cause I think it's so easy to feel like a piece of shit when you like aren't making money / working. You feel like you're not contributing to society and you're like, what the fuck?
That experience I think is very specific to like big cities, especially Los Angeles. But when I went to Europe and I would see people around me, I think that was another thing I was able to remember is that people live differently. And so like in Europe and in Porto, people were just like so lax. They were happy. They were like at the park chilling because their first and main goal in life is not to like succeed in the way we think of success, which is financially, fame, whatever, right? Those types of things were not the first thing. It was, am I enjoying life? Am I, what is that saying? Like you make money to work instead of working to make, to live. Don't.
Is it like you love what you do and don't work?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes.
You're right.
So I don't know. I don't know. We're both immigrants. We don't know these phrases. We don't know these figures of speeches.
You're like, I never got past work to live. Live to work. Whatever.
Yeah. I've just been working to live. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's why you got to go to different places and experience life and
do you feel
and talk
like,
to people in different countries. Because that's what I just kept meeting people. I kept meeting people. Like I was on a Uber ride and he had moved from Switzerland and the Uber driver was telling me how he moved back from Switzerland to Portugal because he hated how everything was about money and how successful you were. And then he was able to buy a house for $300,000 on the beach. He loves surfing. He surfs every day. And this was his lazy boy era job, was having an Uber job because he just, he didn't need it. He just was like, okay, this is, and like he had like a tan. He was talking about how his life is so much better. He met a girlfriend. Yeah, he met a girlfriend.
Not even relevant.
It is because in Switzerland, I doubt he was getting tan. He was not getting any vitamin D, and you know what happens with that. So just, yeah, like all of that. It's real.
I will say, like, and I'd love to ask you about this, because once you can get over the initial fear of like money and stuff, and you're in it and you're getting to your groove, you're making stuff with or without making money, but you're making stuff. I will say, like, this last year, since I sort of like, you know, didn't have a job, a full-time office thing, I have been like very happy. I am like, it is like, you know, like I wake up and I try to make something every day, whether it's this podcast or clips or like I write, you know, I go to a weekly like writers group, and like I wrote a new pilot, and like, you know, I'm not making money for any of that shit. And I still do like some jobs here and there, whether it's stand up or like voiceover or like some writing stuff here and there. But it is nice to like, I don't know, like when you, to your point, like when you sort of detach yourself from this like capitalism cog, you just sort of get to know who you are a little bit. And I think it's also about setting values. Like, it's not, my values aren't like, I need to make this much by this when I'm this age, you know, or I need to buy this house by the year 2050. Like, it's more just like, my values are like, I want to wake up and like create something and get better at creating something. And that's really all you're owed. So I feel like, have I made a bunch of money last year? No, but I feel like I've become a better comedian, writer, and just a person. And I feel like I never would have gotten here if I didn't quit my job, you know what I mean? Or like leave. I never would have thought about these things, because it's so easy to, like you said with the Sephora thing, that's really fun, but it's really easy to just be like, oh, what do? I'm a cashier at this bookstore, and this is what I do. And I just, it's so, you don't have to think. People don't want to fucking think, you know?
So you know what? We gotta tell Nori-chan, hey, just think, you know? Quit your job. There is no way of feeling ready. You're kind of like doing the whole prairie dog thing, or Fumi told me in the East Coast they call it turtle heading. You just take the shit. You can't let it just kind of hang out in between your butt when you're about to take a poop. You just gotta let it all out. You gotta just let it out, and then you're gonna feel good about it. You know, you might be empty.
Absolutely.
Empty the bowels. You're gonna fill it with more your stomach with more food and other experiences.
Absolutely. I mean, people always wait for a sign, but the sad truth is that there is no sign. But I take a lot of.
Do you feel that? Sometimes I feel like there are signs. You don't feel like
I think you make the sign, or you misinterpret whatever's around you because you're desperate and need a sign, you know? I think ultimately there is no sign, but you made a sign out of something. And I think that's fine.
Did you do that?
Which ultimately means...
Did you have a sign?
Did I...
Oh, kind of? Or make a sign?
When I first quit my full-time job, my sign was that I got a job at Comedy Central. So I left for another full-time job. So I don't really call that a sign. I don't call that a sign, you know? That was like logical.
That's you being fucking safe.
Yeah, that's me being safe. But then the second time, so when Comedy Central was only a 9-month job. So when that ended, I decided to stay unemployed and just do comedy full time. I was like, let me just figure this out. And I did it for 1 month before I got Corden. So I was only unemployed for 1 month before I had another full-time job. And so like, I think a year ago, June of 2022 is for the first time when I had to ask myself these questions, because that's when I was like, okay, do I go back to marketing? Like, what do I do now? You know? And so I spent the last year like answering all these questions that I'm sure like Nori's thinking in her head. But like, yeah, I think I never looked for a sign, because you don't need it / don't want to depend on it. Like, I think you should don't make decisions out of fear. Like, do it. I guess I also want to ask Nori, like, what's her side hustle and what does it mean to her? Because whatever, like, for you and me, this other thing that we quit to do, obviously there's more than just money or fame or whatever it was. Like, I just love it. I love doing stand-up, and I just wanted to give myself a chance before I died. Yeah. You know, that's really what it is. I just really liked it.
You got a high.
It's a
from
high.
It. Yeah,
and you need that, because when times get tough, that's the only thing you have is like, okay, I can't forget. I chose this and I fucking love it. But if you lose that, then you gotta be like, let me go back to marketing. So I would also ask you, like, yes, you're scared, blah, 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 but like, what does that side hustle or this other business mean to you? Like, it doesn't have to be entertainment. If you're starting a company, maybe it makes you feel fucking badass that you're starting a company. That's good enough, you know?
That's so true. Like when I guess it's like when I'm performing, when I'm on stage, when I'm on set, like I feel, like you said, a high. I feel excited. I feel blessed, which is like, right? Like I feel like, what the fuck? How am I getting these this opportunity to do this and make money? I mean, it's not always money. Sometimes, even if I'm not making money, I think the performance and like just playing character, it's just so fun. It doesn't, you know, and I think that cannot be replaced with what I was doing before. And you got to really remember that part. Whether, I think it's, the other thing is I'm not as planned as you are. I'm just kind of like, I'm like, okay, I like this thing. I'm just going to do it. Sometimes like I just kind of like the travel thing. I just kind of like had to do it. Like I had this feeling and I just had to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. Even if I overanalyze for a long time, at some point it's like I have to tell my brain to shut the fuck up and then just do the thing. And I felt like with it just made sense for me that was how I was gonna get into this industry. And I think, right, like you said, for you, I think as a comedian, you can make content, you can make something that where you are kind of like your own boss. I think for me, this year was a bit harder because I'm not necessarily, I have other things I can do. I could be a content creator. I could do, I could make my own movies, but in between, I can't really make money off my craft. Maybe if I did like a one-man show.
A one-woman show, you could. Yeah,
one-woman show, right? Like something like that. But again, I've been in this industry for such a short time. You start recognizing that you don't really know all the failures until you go through them. The failures that I was telling you, like you and other people, like my friends who have been in the industry, have already experienced. So you've been in these places, and she's Nori-chan and anyone else quitting, you're going to have all these experiences after you quit that are going to make you feel like, did I regret it a little bit? Like, right? We were talking about this, whether it's socially, and we're going to teach you. We're going to tell you all the things that we went through so that you know what to expect. Because once you expect it, it's a little different. You're like, okay. So
I also feel like, do you feel like in those moments, because this is the thing, the key word here is like, it's so hard to leave a safe and stable job, right? The word safe, it's a double-edged sword because yes, it's safe because you have it and you have a purpose and you have money coming in, but it's dangerous because I feel like if I could do this all over again, I wouldn't change a thing, because through all those failures and the times where I'm like, fuck, like, am I not good enough? Like those are the times when you really like talk to yourself and get to know who you are. And ultimately, I'm not saying this just because I do comedy. I think it's the same thing if you start your own business. You have to go through these tough things to know who you are. And if that's something you're interested in knowing about, like who you are without a job, who you are without these like labels. Cause I think it's so like at parties and stuff, what do you do? Oh, I work at Google. Right. Like that's working at tech is your fucking identity or whatever the fuck it is.
Someone's going to ask you, they're going to be like, hey, how's your job at whatever you're like at Google? How's it?
And now you have to have an answer, and you don't work there anymore. And so I think it's really, to me, that's really valuable to like be comfortable with yourself in these uncomfortable situations. Cause I think that's how you grow as a human. I'm making it mad fucking hippy dippy right now, but I do think,
damn, that's
deep, these are questions and things you never would ask yourself if you just worked forever at a company. You don't have to ask yourself these tough questions,
So you're saying it's worth the questions to learn, if you want to learn about yourself.
Well, also, what do you think about this? Do you feel, I won't lie, also like the last year, like just hunting and gathering for my money, I feel very alive. You know what I mean? Because you eat what you kill.
Wow. I feel different. No, that's not, I think it's different. I don't know if it's a woman man thing. Like I don't like that part. my goal is to like, if I just had money, I would not think about, I hate thinking about that part, which I need to learn as an individual creative, that like how to do that while pursuing the thing I like. Right. While I make this transition. But that part stresses me out so much. Like kind of like what you said, like you don't have a boss. You only have yourself.
Yeah.
That part has been very stressful for me. If I'm not getting jobs like from external, like, you know, productions or whatever, that part really freaks me out. But you feel alive and excited.
Well, it's not always exciting. Sometimes it is that thing you said, fuck, did I make a mistake? I feel that all the time. But like, I feel like if you can evolve yourself to deal with those questions in a more like stable way, I think that's true personal growth. And I think that is a really valuable thing that you can carry on to your next thing, whether you go back to your old job or whatever it is.
Maybe it's also, can I say something though? Like, I think it's maybe a little bit easier for the both of us than some people don't have the luxury in some way, or to be able to experience these things and not have something to fall back on, right? Like, you have your girl, if say that like you could not work and whatever, you have your girlfriend, you have potentially your family. As an adult, I know you would never do that right now, but say something happened, right? You would still be able to kind of fall back on something.
What
and
do you mean
I
by
don't
that
think
something? You're talking about like I get cancer and I have to drop
like
$300,000
in this industry,
on
like, you know how you made the transition and you couldn't work
Yeah.
or whatever, even if you have, other than, you know, like, you have, some people don't have like a family, some people don't have those things, like, so we have some form of luxury. Like, I have friends who probably would somehow save me or whatever in a way.
Sure.
So I feel like this person is probably, I have a feeling you're okay. You've been in the company for 8 years. Like,
I agree with you. The only thing I would challenge with what you're saying is, again, I think it's like we lean towards extremes. And yes, like, of course, if I didn't work for a whole year, I have people who backed me up. But even if I didn't work for a whole year, I still would have money because I had just saved, you know?
Yes,
like I get, like, somebody would have to steal my money for me to be like, oh, fuck, I'm homeless. Like, right. So I think with Nori, it's the same thing. I assume she's saving. So it's like, again, don't think in extremes. That is something I always do. My therapist always slaps me for it. But like, I feel like this whole thing, what if something happened? What do you, no, like, you're not gonna.
It's true. While you're saying that, I just thought, bro, we could still get jobs at McDonald's. Like, that's an extreme, but yes. I'm just saying, like, we could get a job where you're still going to be alive. Like, you know?
Yeah. And I was listening to Rick Rubin's interview. Do you know who Rick Rubin is?
No, I don't think so.
He's like a legendary music producer. He's worked with like Red Hot Chili Peppers and like rap, like Kendrick, and like he's just like a really artsy guy.
Yeah.
And I was listening to him because I was trying to learn how to trust my instincts a little bit more, because for him it's all about instinct and your gut feeling and like what he wants creatively out of things. But he was saying, like, you know, obviously you can't control the outcome. Like, some people make it, some people don't. But he was like, but if you ever have a day job to support this passion project that you have, like, he was like, that's a very noble thing. You know, that's not, you didn't fail. You know, failing is like you spiraling, being like, I guess I could just never be a painter. You know, like, I realize that, like, I'm probably going to do stand up until I die, no matter what happens, because it's something I have access to. And I don't necessarily have to be doing it in an arena or football stadium to feel amazing. And so, like, that's another thing is, like, for Nori, I don't want her to think you're a failure or you're being a little bitch because you can't quit that job. If that's what it takes to do this side hustle, I don't know what it is. It could be, remember that one time fucking somebody emailed us about like how they started a beekeeping business? Remember that shit?
Yeah,
you know,
that was cool.
It could be that. It could be that. I understand if you want to keep bees, but you got to work at fucking whatever, you know, Baskin Robbins to make some money, pay rent. That is not a bad thing at all. No one will judge you. And I actually commend you. I think that's an incredible thing, because that means you like that side hustle. You like bees that much that you'll work 60 hours just to be able to do it. And I think it's amazing.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm going to let you know that as scary as all this is, people around you things are going to happen once you do this, because I know you're going to do this. This person is going to do it. So I could already feel it. We're putting it out there for you. People are going to commend you when you do this. People are going to be like, what? You quit this crazy job, lucrative job that other people want for this other job that potentially doesn't make as much, but you love? They're going to be like, holy shit, I commend you. That's something a lot. I would say probably, I don't know, like 80%, 90% of people want to do, but cannot
But they can't do
do.
it.
And they're going to commend you. They're also going to be jealous because they want to do the thing. So you're going to feel change in your life, but you're going to thrive. You're going to eat off that that feeling. And you're going to also inspire people around you to do the same thing.
That's
You're
a great
also,
point. I think
right?
just by you committing, you already won in my eyes. You know what I'm saying? You're already a champion because you did that. Because you're right. Many people can't do that.
You need to make a Patreon where people have done this and they're inspired by us, and then we give them like positive affirmation after.
Should we get into Cameo? Is that where the money is?
Yes!
Should we just say really nice things?
I've always wanted to do Cameo.
I feel like if we say these, like, I think we're being really motivational right now. I feel like a fucking UCLA basketball coach or some shit. But like, I feel like people need to hear this stuff. I'm serious, and I don't think you and I, because what pisses me off the most when talking to like people who aren't in the art world is they just go like, it's gonna work out, and it is such a fucking empty promise. Like, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about, and like that's not what people need to hear. What people need to hear is this shit. Like, it's not about it working out or not working out. It's about the decision that you made to chase something you love because you're a human, and that's awesome. You know, I think
so
like
true.
people need to hear more of that shit.
I
than,
forget that until someone else is like, oh, you did that? Like at this age, you decided to quit your other job. And like, I forget how big of a deal that is until other people remind me. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that was. But once you do it, let's talk about the things we talked about that we're gonna prep you for. You're gonna make one of the things is not making as much money is going to make you feel anxious. It's gonna make you feel like you can't spend money. It's gonna make you feel like you can't spend money on other people. It's gonna make you feel all these things that are gonna get in your head. You're going to feel insignificant. FUMI here.
You're like, going to feel insignificant.
It's true. You're going to feel that way for a bit, but you got to talk yourself out of it.
Because we're trained to think of our value of life attached to money, right? Which is not the truth, but we're trained to think that way. So absolutely, you're going to feel like a piece of shit. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you made a point about you're not going to want to use your savings. Right? We're not going to want to do it, but you're going to have to. You're going to have to.
Yes. And I challenge this question. I don't know. Again, I don't know if she's married or whatever the fuck it is, but like, I don't know if you have student loans, but if you don't have a family and you don't have a ton of student loans, what is a savings for if not this moment, right? Isn't that what a savings is? So you can do stuff again. Like, I feel like all my entire $20 saving, and I'm like, for what? I don't have a fucking family. Like, what am I saving for? Am I not saving for this moment that I want right now? You know? And so like, I think it's people fucking save for like when they're 70, and I think you should. I'm not saying don't have like a retirement plan, but what I'm saying is like, it's okay to spend some of your savings on shit you want to do, because that's what savings are for. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree with you. I also think that you and I probably have more than the 12. Like, we're safe, right? We're safe. I don't know if everyone's like that. I also have to say, I know a lot of people who are in debt or have like very little money, but they use that as motivation to do better. Like, that was one of the sales pitches. Like, when I would work in real estate, I was getting, I've talked about this. I've got coaching, sales coaching. And we would spend $1,000 a month for someone to kind of keep us accountable, kind of like a boss would, because our job is, self-employed. And they would have us spend a shit ton of, we would have like these mood boards that, with these fancy cars or whatever you wanted in life, material things. Also like things like marriage. That's not really material, I guess. It's like but that costs money, right? So planning for the future and having these things that, so we would have to go out and spend that amount of money. Like we would have to go and buy the few $1,000 backpack, because then you have less money in your account and then it motivates you to have to go out there.
Insane.
So I know that's insane right now when I think about it.
I cannot recommend that for Nori, but that's insane.
I'm just saying, like, when you have less, sometimes it does motivate you. It also can like make you want to like kill yourself, but also
oh my god, that's so funny. If you're like, yeah, and there was 10 people in my graduate class, but by the end there were only 6 because 4 people jumped off a building, but because they had too much debt. But I made it. God damn.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't do that now. At my mental state back, like knowing how I have to say though, and this is the truth. I have been in I don't know if it's industry. I think it's partially the industry, and like it's just not. I don't think this industry is made for everyone. Specifically this industry, the mental state like you have to be in, you have to be so strong to make it in this space, because you could go down. And I think everyone in this industry has experienced this because they don't know how to again navigate through the hardships until you go through it, and then you come out and you're like, oh, okay, well, like what the fuck. But I would suggest also talk to other people. Like you really have to make sure to have like a strong people that you like really believe in, and like who will have your back, like your family members. Like I think it's
support
systems
meant for your mental health, 100%.
Yeah,
because
right?
you are gonna, again, I don't know what industry you're in. Maybe it's beekeeping. I don't know what's good in the beekeeping biz, but like you're gonna go through some shit.
I'm sure
you're gonna
they
be
have
like, oh no, my queen is not. I don't know, being a good queen or whatever it is. I don't know what bee people go through, but you're gonna need to go on Reddit /beekeeping and make sure people know like your struggles and stuff. Yeah, but I think at the end of the day, it's a mental thing. She did mention like she's like I'm almost getting to the point where my side hustle can support me full time, and you can make money-based goals like that where it's like if I make $60K with my side hustle, I will quit my full-time job. But I almost think that's like you're setting up yourself for failure, because what if you don't do it? You're a fucking failure. So to me, I think it's like there is no magic number. That number doesn't exist where you're like, if I can make a little bit more, I'm gonna quit. That number doesn't exist because you're not ready to quit, right? So you have to get there mentally. And if you're ready, you can quit when the other thing's only making 30,000 or whatever it is, if that's what you really want, And again, don't fucking like light your life on fire. But I'm just saying, like, you giving it a shot is not gonna like change much in your life financially,
Exactly. Like, okay, imagine yourself. Are you okay doing the regular job that you have right now? Like, can you imagine yourself in 5 years doing that same job? Like, and how will you feel? Like, I cannot imagine. I was at a point where I was like, I cannot imagine doing what I was doing even in like 2 years. Like it just felt so.
Oh, of course. I know. I had a quarter life crisis when I was 22, and I'd been working for 6 months out of college, and I was like, oh, I can't do cubicles. This is crazy. Like I could never do that. Cubicle. That's why I started comedy. I was like, it was so insane. But anyways, I hope this was helpful to Nori.
That shit was helpful for us.
Yeah, that was really nice. Sometimes we need to hear it. We need to hear it ourselves. We need to say it to each other.
That was motivation. We should do more of these like we didn't
motivational episodes.
Yeah.
Dude, again, it's like we're not saying you're gonna make it or that's what it's about. It's just saying like I think it's really fun to do something you care about. Like it's really important for humans to do something they give a shit about, because I have worked at places where I don't give a fuck about the outcome, and yes, I'm getting paid, but it is a mental prison, my guy. Like, I'm just like, you feel like you're wasting your youth. That's the other thing is like, we're only young once. Like, you can't really do this shit when you're like 50. So like,
yeah, you can. You can do it when you're 50.
Actually, you can.
I
Somebody
need
was
those
talking about that the other day.
motivations. I always have to think about that. Like the IKEA guy, he didn't make IKEA till he was in his 40s or 50s. Like I need to hear those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think you obviously like time-wise you can, because even if you start something at 50, you still have like 20 years of life left. So of course you can do whatever. But I guess like, I mean, that's an important thing to think about, because people always think like, oh, if I quit my job now, I could never go back. What are you fucking talking about? You're like 30. Let's say you don't do that for 5, 7, 10 years. you're still 40, dude. Like, you can get a job. You're fine, you know?
Yeah.
I just think, like, people think in such fucking extremes. Like, dude, you went to college. You're going to get another job. It's fucking fine, you know?
Yeah.
Like, just because you don't work in marketing for a year doesn't mean they're going to blacklist you from the, you know, whatever you're doing. So
Yeah.
that's another thing I try to tell myself.
In conclusion, I think that you should make the leap of faith because you're already so close to making that amount of money anyways, like or to be able to be safe in this secondary job, this job that you actually want. I really, really think you should do it because you're ready. And but don't blame us if anything happens and you go homeless. Like, I'm just saying, from me, who I mean, I've had this experience, and a lot of my friends have, and most people are fine. Like, you might be podcasting in your living room a year from now that
Begging
makes no
for
money
Venmos on the internet.
but you'll have fun. Like, I can't, like, we're not making much at all from this, but it's like, I can't say like I feel like this is fun to me. Like,
yeah, my advice to her is, like, do it if you want to do it, but again, like, don't make the outcome the goal, right? Make the outcome the fact that you're doing it, and make sure you set yourself goals that are, like, tangible and doable. So instead of being like, I need to reach 100,000 followers on my account by this month, be like, I'm going to release content every day, or I'm going to write something every day, or I'm going to make 100 calls to make my business, whatever. Like, do stuff like that so that you can't fail. You know, if your goal is to make 100 calls today so that you can sell that house, and you don't make 100 calls, that's fucking on you. You had the time. That's on you, you know? But if your goal is like, I need to make $100,000 by March, that's not really up to you. That's not really up to your control. So you're going to feel like a failure. So I would just say, like, set goals in your beekeeping world that makes sense. And then also get a therapist, because that's like, they're really going to walk you through this. And that's, shout out to my therapist. She really helped me with everything in the last year, but
you need
it's
a
really
therapist.
helpful.
Absolutely. Actually, yeah, that should be in the kit of quitting job to pursue love job. Get a therapist.
Yes.
That's
Get a therapist.
And get a support system. And buckle up, buddy.
buckle up, Nori. Anyways, thank you for listening. That was our episode. Quick shout out to our sound engineer Domagoy and our video editor Matthias. Please follow us on all the social media platforms at Cash Cuties Pod, TikTok and Instagram. You can also follow me on there at the FUMI Abe. That's TheFumiAbe.
You can find me on my Instagram at BakedGoods, BAKEDGUDS, and my website steffybake.com. And yeah, make sure to also get on our Patreon, guys. I do want to do this cameo thing. I feel like it'd be really fun.
Yeah. Do you want to open a page and see what happens?
Okay. All right. See you guys next week. And until then, spend your money wisely.
Only wisely.
No.
Bye.
Or have fun, man. Like, we actually, what are we saying? We're about to go. You're
on
about
vacation.
to go on this amazing
go
fun
to Hawaii.
vacation.
I know.
And I did.
Oh, wait. I always forget to say this. Please email us with your questions and stuff, because we love talking about it on the pod. That's at cashcutiespodcast@gmail.com. You can send us a voice memo. That would be amazing. Or you can just type it out and we'll answer it on the pod if it's amazing. So anyways, thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week. We love you. Bye.